Something happened to a whole generation, and it happened fast. Starting around the early 2010s, rates of anxiety, depression, and distress among teenagers, especially teenage girls, did not just rise, they surged. Across many countries at roughly the same time, young people became dramatically more anxious, more depressed, and more fragile than the generations before them. This was not a slow drift, it was a sharp break beginning in a specific window of years. And the question is, what changed? Today's book argues the answer is not a mystery. In those very years, the way children grew up was fundamentally rewired. The phone-based childhood replaced the play-based childhood. And whether or not you have children, this matters to you because it reveals what these devices are doing to all of our minds, attention and well-being. This is the heart of this book by Jonathan Haidt, a social psychologist who set out to explain the sudden collapse in young people's mental health. Haidt gathers the evidence and points to a dramatic transformation in childhood that occurred in a narrow span of years. Smartphones, social media, and constant connectivity moved to the center of young people's lives, while free, unstructured, in-person play and independence sharply declined. He calls this the great rewiring of childhood. His core claim is this: the mental health crisis among young people was caused largely by the replacement of a play-based childhood with a phone-based one. Children once grew up through free play, real-world risk, and face-to-face interaction, which built resilience and social skill. Now they grow up through screens which deprive them of what they need and flood them with what harms them. The result is a generation that is anxious, depressed, and developmentally undernourished. And the solution requires changing how we handle these devices and childhood itself. The first idea is the central transformation. In a few short years, the basic nature of childhood changed. For most of human history, children grew up through play. They roamed, explored, took risks, made up games, and worked things out with other children, largely free from constant adult supervision. Then, in a narrow window, that world was rapidly replaced. Smartphones arrived in nearly every pocket, social media became central, and childhood moved indoors and online. The phone-based childhood supplanted the play-based one fast and almost completely. This rewiring is the root of everything that follows. It was not one small change. It was a wholesale transformation of how a generation spent its time. The second idea is the devastating result. The rewiring coincided with a sharp collapse in young people's mental health. As the phone-based childhood took hold, rates of anxiety, depression, self-harm, and distress among adolescents rose steeply, beginning right in the window when smartphones and social media became dominant. Haidt highlights that the harm fell especially hard on girls, whose rates of anxiety and depression rose dramatically. The generation that grew up on phones became markedly more fragile and unhappy than those just before them. This is the human cost at the center of the book. Not an abstract debate about screen time, but a real and measurable surge in suffering among young people. So take the crisis seriously. The third idea is a striking paradox in how we raise children now. We protect them too much in the real world and too little in the virtual one. Out of safety concerns, often exaggerated, children were given far less unsupervised play, independence, and real-world risk than previous generations. We wrapped them in caution offline. At the same time, we handed them powerful devices and largely let them roam the online world unsupervised, exposed to content, strangers, and pressures we would never allow in the physical world. We locked the front door and left the digital one wide open. This is exactly backwards. Children need real-world independence and manageable risk to develop, and they need protection from the harms of the unregulated online world. So the lesson is to flip it. The fourth idea explains what the phone-based childhood takes away: the essential developmental value of free, risky play. Through play, especially play that involves some real risk and independence, children learn to handle fear, manage conflict, cooperate, and build resilience. Facing small risks on their own teaches them they can cope, which inoculates them against anxiety. When this free play is replaced by screens and constant supervision, children are deprived of this vital training. They grow up with less resilience, less social skill, and less of the hard-won confidence that comes from navigating the real world on their own. So recognize that free play and real-world independence are developmental necessities, not optional extras. A childhood stripped of this and filled with screens instead produces young people less equipped to handle life. Restoring free play is central to restoring well-being. The fifth idea names the specific damage the devices do. Haidt identifies several core harms. The first is social deprivation. Time on screens replaces the in-person, face-to-face interaction that humans deeply need, leaving young people more isolated even as they are more connected. The second is sleep deprivation. Devices in the bedroom and endless late-night scrolling rob young people of the sleep that is essential to mental and physical health. The third is attention fragmentation. The constant interruptions and notifications shatter the capacity for sustained focus, making deep thought and concentration harder. The fourth is addiction. These platforms are deliberately engineered to be compulsive, hooking young minds and consuming enormous amounts of their time and attention. Together, these harms undermine young people's social development, rest, focus, and freedom. And notice these same harms apply in milder form to adults too. Naming them clearly is what allows us to push back against each one. The sixth idea adds important nuance. The phone-based childhood harms boys and girls in different ways. Girls were hit especially hard by social media with its relentless comparison, social pressure, and exposure to others' curated lives, feeding anxiety, depression, and damaging comparison about appearance and status. Boys were affected differently, often withdrawing into virtual worlds of gaming and online content, retreating from real-world challenges, relationships, and development. Their harm showed up more as disengagement and a failure to launch. So the damage is not identical. The underlying pattern is the same. The virtual world, in its various pools, drew young people away from the real-world experiences they needed to thrive. Recognizing the different shapes the harm takes helps us respond to what each is actually facing. The seventh idea is the hopeful one. There are concrete, collective solutions. Haidt does not leave us only with a diagnosis. He proposes clear reforms that work best when done together. His proposals center on delaying and limiting these technologies in childhood, keeping smartphones and especially social media out of children's hands until they are older and more developed. Making schools phone-free so young people can actually focus and interact. And, just as importantly, restoring far more free play, independence, and real-world experience to childhood. The key insight is that this is a collective action problem. No single family can easily solve it alone because their child will be the only one left out. But if communities, schools, and societies move together, the change becomes possible. So the path back is real, but it requires acting together to give children less phone and more real world, less virtual isolation, and more genuine play and connection. The crisis was created by a collective shift, and it can be reversed by a collective response. Before we talk about using this, 3 hard truths. The first, The timing is too precise to dismiss. The sharp, simultaneous rise in adolescent distress, right as smartphones and social media took over childhood, is not easily waved away as coincidence. The second, we have childhood protection backwards. We overprotect children in the real world, denying them the independence they need to grow, while underprotecting them online where real dangers abound. Both errors damage them. The third, individual willpower is not enough because it is a collective problem. A single family limiting screens faces enormous pressure since their child becomes the odd one out. The solution requires communities acting together, not isolated heroics. So, how do you apply this? Whether or not you have children. If you are a parent, the core moves are to delay smartphones and social media, support phone-free schools, and deliberately restore free play and real-world experience to your children's lives. And seek out other families to act together, since collective action lifts the burden from any one child. Even if you have no children, the same harms, social isolation, lost sleep, fragmented attention, and addictive design are at work on adults too. So guard your own real-world connection, protect your sleep and attention from your devices, and reclaim genuine experience over endless scrolling. Here is a concrete example. Imagine a parent worried about their anxious, withdrawn teenager who spends almost every hour on the phone. Using this book, they stop blaming the child and see the rewiring at work. They join with other local families to collectively delay social media and reduce phones, so no single child is isolated by the change. They push their school to go phone-free, and they deliberately give their teen more real-world independence and unstructured time with friends. Over time, as real-world experience returns and the screen's grip loosens, supported by other families, the teen becomes more engaged, more confident, and less anxious. The change was possible because it was made together. First, childhood was rewired and mental health collapsed. In a few short years, the phone-based childhood replaced the play-based one, and adolescent anxiety and depression surged, especially among girls. The timing points clearly to smartphones and social media. Second, we protect children backwards and they need real play. We overprotect them offline and underprotect them online. Free, independent, slightly risky play is essential to resilience, and screens have stolen it while inflicting isolation, lost sleep, broken attention, and addiction. Third, the path back is real but collective. Delay phones and social media in childhood, make schools phone-free, and restore free play. Because this is a collective action problem, the solutions work best when communities move together. And the same harms apply to adults, so guard your own connection, sleep, and attention too. The anxious generation, in the end, is both an alarm and a call to action. We accidentally ran a vast, damaging experiment on a generation of children, replacing the real-world childhood they needed with a phone-based one that has left them anxious and struggling. But it also shows the way out if we act together to give children and ourselves less screen and more life. The crisis was made by a collective shift, and it can be healed by a collective choice to put the real world back at the center of growing up. If you want the PDF notes used to break down this book, comment PDF below. When I see your comment, I will share the link so you can go through every key idea yourself. And tell me in the comments which book you want decoded next. Your comment might decide the next video. This is Blood, Sweat, Gold, where luxury is earned, not inherited.